Family Gaming Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Engage, a Family Gaming Podcast. This is episode 104, and I am your host, Steven Dutzman. This is the official video game and board game podcast for EngageFamilyGaming.com. EFG is a website where parents like myself and my co-hosts come together to give parents and families the information they need to get their family game on. This week, I am joined by my lovely wife, Jenna. Both of us are sick. This podcast is late by a day. We are sorry. However, we were sick, and we were hoping to stave off our children getting sick. So far, knock on wood, we have, mostly. But here we are. This is going to be an interesting episode because we're actually going to talk about both topics. Normally, we pick one or the other. Today, we're actually going to mix it up a little bit, partially because there's just some stuff that went live today that we wanted to talk about. We had a Kickstarter review that went live on Monday, and there's some cool video game news. And also, we had a really neat interview with the man behind Cheese Quest, which, if you'll recall from last time, was one of our Kickstarter spotlights. So, yeah. So, before we get too into the weeds, I do want to take a moment before we begin to thank you guys for listening. We hope the games that you've played so far this week have been great. I can tell you, we've played a lot of great games in the last week. We do want to make our podcast more interactive, so please feel free to reach out to us on social media or email us at efgpodcast@engagefamilygaming.com with any comments, questions, or topic suggestions. So, as many of you already know, we alternate our topics, but like I said, this time, we're kind of jamming them all together. So, why don't we start with the one news announcement that I wanted to bring up, just to knock it out of the way, and then we'll go around the horn, where you're going to have a board game, and I'm going to have specifically 21 video games in one tiny little box. Sound good, Jenna?
Sounds good.
As you can hear, I'll be doing most of the talking, because Jenna is, I don't want to say nearly dead, that's not true, but she is suffering greatly. So everyone should leave nice comments all over the place congratulating Jenna on a job well done.
Aw, thank you.
So, the one piece of news, it's Switch-related news, and we finally have a release date for Stardew Valley on the Switch.
What is that date?
It is October 5th, so Stardew Valley is coming out later on this week. It's going to be $15.
That's not bad.
As someone who, for Switch owners, if you have a PC, then you probably have heard about this game already. It is a, but if you haven't, it is essentially, I would say, like a kicked up version of Harvest Moon. If you haven't heard of Harvest Moon before, it's a farming simulator. You play as a character who has inherited their grandfather's farm. You come from the big city, and you live in the simple life. This farm is attached to a very quaint fishing village, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do. The key is time moves very fast, so you have to make your decisions. Are you going to go fishing? Are you going to plant potatoes and turnips? Are you going to go questing in the dungeons, trying to beat up slimes? Are you going to go get married? Things like that. This game is, it blew up on PC last year. It has since been ported to PS4, and I believe Xbox One. What's really noteworthy about this game is that it was one person who made it. He did all the coding, all the art, all the music, everything, which is impressive. I think that the Switch is the definitive place to play this game.
Why?
Because a lot of it is very kind of casual. In that, you can just spend a couple of days just farming, and you could do that, sitting back on the couch, playing that on the gamepad, and then in, undocked mode, and then you can dock it and, kind of do some of the more hardcore stuff. This is a game that you could play forever. And generally, handheld systems are great for games like this. It's also going to look great. I mean, it's the pixel art is awesome. So I think it's going to look awesome on the Switch's handheld screen. And also, it's a lot of games for $15.
Well, that's certainly a reasonable price. And I mean, heck, I know people who poured more money into Farmville, and that was a Facebook game. So, I mean...
Yeah, I spent more than $15 on Farmville.
Did you?
Did I ever tell you that? You know what? They did. So wait, they did the thing. Do you remember when they had was it the earthquake or the hurricane in Jamaica?
Uh-huh.
It was around that time. They did a charity thing where if you gave money to Jamaica, they gave you like some shenanigans. So I donated money to Jamaica
Or Haiti.
or Haiti.
I'm pretty sure it was Haiti. But anyways.
I can't remember. I'm not feeling well. I gave to charity.
Right.
So I don't think I ever really. I think I maybe spent $1 otherwise. But it doesn't really matter. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. You can tweet at me if you want to judge me, everybody. So that is Stardew Valley. The good news is, if you think that someone in your family might be interested in it, or if you think you're interested in it and you're not really sure, there are tons of streams and YouTube videos of this game. So just look it up. Friend of the show, Marsha Morgan, who is the mommy gamer. She streams Stardew Valley, I think every Thursday or Wednesday. One day of the week she streams Stardew Valley, and she has done it nonstop. It's a very cool game. So it's coming to the Switch. We will have our impressions of it soon. I don't think that we'll have time in our busy review schedule to pick it up this week, just because everything's getting crazy. But soon enough, we will have it. So that's the news. October 5th. What's crazy is it was just approved a few days ago. They've just been wanting to get this game out there. And considering things, a nice, light, positive, pleasant game is exactly what the world needs right now. So, that's the news. Let's go around the horn. Why don't we talk about a Kickstarter review that you wrote, that now that I'm looking at it on EngageFamilyGaming.com, it appears that I stole the credit from you.
You do that all the time, but that's okay.
I'm going to fix it. Well, that's because every other writer on Engage Family Gaming uses their account that automatically gives them credit for it. You just share me a Google document if you're going to give me attitude about it. So you reviewed Scream or Die, which sounds way darker than it is until you realize that Die is a pun because it's a dice rolling game, so it's not actually as dark as it is, and it's kind of adorable.
It is. It's a cute 2 to 8 player game by Amber Palace Games. It says it's designed for players 8 and up. I definitely think it can skew younger than that. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play. It's very simple to learn, very simple to explain, but it's fun. It's got a couple of interesting twists in it that make it different than just a rolling dice game. So in Scream or Die, you play one of 8 cute little stereotypical Halloween monsters. There's vampires, there's werewolves, there's mummies, there's
the Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man, and there's the Invisible Man and Invisible Woman. They're steampunk themed. And you are a tiny monster.
I don't know if they're steampunk.
Well, they kind of look it. Evan said they did, so I'm going with what our son said. Anyways.
Well, he thought they were steampunk mummies.
Right.
And then it took us a minute to figure out that they're not actually mummies. It's the Invisible Man.
Right. But they, anyways. They
Victorian.
Are Victorian. Fine. Whatever. They are tiny little monsters that have been transformed into children by their boss, and their boss is an evil witch. And the only way to break the spell of the evil witch and get returned to normal is to be the first monster to bring the witch 13 Halloween candies. And you collect these candies by playing the game. And basically, there's 3 parts to every turn, and it's played in rounds. The first thing is before the roll. The person who is the active roller chooses 5 random dice from the bag to make a dice pool. And starting with players to the left of the roller, you have little tokens that are Scream tokens that you can use to add dice to the dice pool. So if your colored dice that you're trying to collect your candy with is not part of the original dice pool, you could say, oh, okay, I'll spend 2 of my Scream token to add more dice. And the roller randomly pulls out dice, and hopefully they're the ones of your color. You can also say, oh boy, my opponent's in the lead, I want to try and make it so that they don't win, and you can plot against them. So you choose to add more dice to the dice pool, and then you roll the dice. And then you can also use your Scream tokens to re-roll dice that have been rolled to be more either advantageous to you or to kind of mess with your opponents. At the end of the rolls, you score, and you get a candy for each one of your symbols that came up on the dice. It's kind of fun. I mean, it's a great teaching tool that teaches a little bit of risk versus reward and some resource management. It's very easy to go through those Scream tokens and end up with nothing to do. But as you go through the game, it's also very easy for you to collect Scream tokens because some of the dice that you roll earn you Scream tokens.
Yeah, I mean, I found that I was emptying my bucket a lot.
Yeah.
And then refilling it on my turn, which really, what that meant was I needed to use better resource management. And we talk about that in the review, right? Like, the idea is, and the kids that we played with, they learned a lesson, is that if you spend all of your stuff early on, you can't really do anything, and you just kind of watch as your opponents kind of rack up points and close out the game. Which, it's helpful to have some of those Scream tokens to say, you know what, no, I'm going to turn that off and take your score that was kind of 2 of your candy down to none, or at least give you that chance. So it was an important lesson. You can't really go crazy, but it is certainly a lot of fun. The fact that essentially on your turn, if it goes well, you replenish your Scream tokens pretty well. So
I like the fact that this is a game, even if you're not the active roller, you're always taking part in the action. So nobody's just sitting there kind of being bored, waiting for their turn to roll the dice.
Yeah. And also, as you get more players added to the game, holy crap, does the roller get to roll like a giant pile of dice?
Right. So if you're a kinesthetic, you like to hear the sound of dice rolling, this is a good game for you.
If you play Wizards in Dungeons & Dragons.
Right.
And like to just roll lots of 6-sided die, yeah, I'm a big fan.
So yeah, I mean, my Around the Horn is a board game. I haven't really had a chance to play many video games this week, but I'm glad I get to share the Kickstarter.
Yes,
it goes live.
The Kickstarter is live already.
Yeah.
Good for them. Their goal was very modest, $6,500. They're already at $3,400 at the time of this recording. They have almost a month left to go, so I really am not concerned for them. With that said, if this sounds like a game that you'd be interested in, most notably, it does have a Halloween theme, which is great. Everybody that has lots of Halloween parties and things like this is the kind of game you can get, and maybe you don't play it in the middle of the summer. Maybe you hold on to it and you only play it a couple of times a year around holidays. It's a low price point game, doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's certainly thematic, and it'll be a lot of fun. So definitely head on over. You can look at our review, and it links right into the Kickstarter. And also it'll give you a look at some of the art and things like that, which I think are cute. So, impossible to talk about video games this week without talking about the very tiny plastic elephant in the room, which is the SNES Classic Edition. First off, I know there was a lot of negativity going around that this thing was going to be impossible to find. That was simply not true. There were lots of them available. There were reports of stores in Brooklyn receiving hundreds of them. So that's a good thing. Now,
yeah, I mean, I know people who did not go out of their way, who just went to the store to see if it was there and ended up coming home with it. So, I mean...
Exactly. So, with that said, it is not... Obviously, everyone did not get one. However, if you are interested and do not have one in your possession yet, don't give up. Because it looks like Nintendo is making good on their promises to make this more available, which is awesome. But we got it, and both the boys and I had an opportunity over the last 3 or 4 days to play it, and it's awesome. It's the same sturdy construction that the NES Classic did. We know this because our daughter decided to step over the cords this afternoon and spike it on the ground, and it was not the worse for wear. So it definitely can take a fall. It comes with 2 controllers at this time, and that is my favorite part of it because immediately the boys dove into their playing multiplayer games. They played Street Fighter because they had Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. They played Kirby's Dream Course, which is like a strategy golf game. It's really weird. So they really got into the multiplayer aspects of the system. Which is awesome. That's my one of the first things that our oldest son did is he turned on Super Mario World and played it 2-player with his baby sister. She did not do terribly well, but you know what? She jumped a few times, and that was good enough for him. And when she wasn't playing, she was watching him, and she loved every minute of it. So I think that is great. This is one of those systems that you either have nostalgia for it or you don't. I do. This is a system I got when I was 11 or 12. And it really does kind of define my formative game playing years. I love the NES, and I even love older systems. They announced a Commodore 64 Classic.
That's funny.
I'm not sure if that's fake or not, but if it's real, I want to get it just because I want to play some of those text games. But
okay, so
this is the real system. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have to share this funny story because it was mortifying and funny all at the same time. I was older when this system came out, and I remember that I was babysitting a girl who was probably somewhere around maybe between 5 and 8 years old. And she had this system in her house, and when I would put her to bed and she was all asleep for the night and I'd have free time before Mom came home from wherever she was, I was allowed to play the video game system. So I pulled out the SNES, and she had Donkey Kong Country. And I was like, oh, this looks fun. I remember Donkey Kong in the arcade, but this is really cool. This is very different. So I played fairly regularly when I was there, trying to get through and make the game work. And I had hyped it up to my son. I was like, oh, you love monkeys and you love Donkey Kong. He was Donkey Kong for Halloween last year. I was like, let me tell you about how hard this first Donkey Kong Country game is that I played on the system. So when we opened up the SNES and Steve was taking it out to show us, I said, oh, you got to show Jake Donkey Kong too. Let me tell you about the ropes and the bees and trying to get by them. And Mom couldn't do it. And I played forever. And it was so hard. Steve turned it on, opened up Donkey Kong Country, played for maybe 10 minutes and made it like halfway through the game. I couldn't even get past that level with the ropes.
Okay, so not halfway through the game. It is long.
Well,
but I made it through the levels that you distinctly remember being terrible at without dying.
Yeah, in like 2 minutes. I mean, it was really ridiculous. I was mortified. And Jake's like, Mom, I thought you said it was hard. Well, for me it was. And it might still be, because now I'm afraid to pick up the controllers after being embarrassed that heartily by my husband.
Well, I mean, platformers are my thing. So, also, I played Donkey Kong Country a lot when I was younger.
And I can't even get Mario to jump on a Goomba without dying. So, I mean...
Not everybody's a professional gamer, nor am I. But if there were a genre of game that I am good at, it is platformers.
Anyways, so that's my funny story.
I don't think we need to beat up on you.
It was just a sad story that I had to share.
The kids were very depressed at how hard their mom said this was going to be and how easily I crushed it. But Donkey Kong Country, at least the opening levels, are not particularly known for being very challenging. You didn't play a lot, and that's okay. That's okay.
I didn't have video games in my life, unless I was somewhere else. I was a deprived child.
Well, I fixed all that.
Now we have too many of them, and I want to give them all away.
Nah, that's not going to happen, and you know it. So some other interesting stories about the SNES Classic. Really, it was just interesting. I posted about it on Twitter, actually, so I guess that the answer is that I tweeted about it. Is that the most common phrase on Sunday morning when I was kind of going through playing all the different games and trying them all out was, "Wow, Dad, this game looks harder than it was. Wow, Dad, this game's harder than games now." And yes, games back then were harder. So again, any people who are looking to get these retro consoles to bring back and play with their children need to remember that games were harder back then. Now, the advantage to the SNES Classic is that all of these games are basically timeless. Maybe not all of them, but many of them are. So they're great anyway. But yeah, it's a good thing. I'm actually pretty excited that we had an opportunity to play it. We'll be talking about it more, probably talking about individual games as we get moving. But yeah, it's a pretty neat little toy. $80. So for what it is, that is outright theft. So That's the SNES Classic. If you have questions, concerns, or ideas on what opinions maybe, let us know. We'd love to talk about it. Maybe say something in the community and talk about it. That's engagefamilygaming.com/community. So there we go. That's around the horn. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a break, and then we are going to, when we come back, Jenna will be gone. So Jenna's gonna say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
And you will hear me talking to the man behind Cheese Quest. Talk to you in a little bit, guys. All right, everybody, thank you for holding for us. Here we have a special segment. I have a guest on the show today, another Kickstarter. But this time, we talked about it on the last podcast. It's Cheese Quest, a quest for cheese. I have the man behind this, Phil Schadt. Sir, how are you today?
Doing well.
Have you... So I'm glad that you took a few minutes from staring at spreadsheets and staring at Kickstarter numbers, etc., to come talk to us. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your game because it's obviously cool. I mean, you heard us on the last podcast. Both my wife and I are interested in it. She's just got a thing with mice, so you got to forgive her. It could have been the coolest thing, and she's gonna have questions because she has, it's a long story, one we don't have time for. I'm excited for it. I think it's kind of neat. I love the way that the map gets built out with those cards. Are they cards, or are they, like, at the final version of the game, are those going to be kind of like hard cardboard things? Or
those will be cardboard tiles, yeah.
Nice.
So they'll actually be hard cardboard. And they'll be double-sided, so you have lots of options. There can be 12 of them total, including the center tile will be 13. So it'll have, like, lots of options for maps.
Yeah, that's a lot of... That's basically an infinite number of maps. So well done with that. I love games that have the hexagonal stuff that just every time you play it out, it's so totally different.
Yeah.
It has like that Hero Quest vibe for me. I don't know why. Every time I see hexes that come together in weird shapes, that's just what it always comes down to for me. So here we go. We got Cheese Quest, a quest for cheese. People listening, when we are done here, I urge you, head on over to Kickstarter and check out the campaign. Even if you don't back it, share it, because you never know. Somebody might help make this dream come true. That's the whole point of this. So, Phil, I want to ask you a couple questions about this game, and I have a few that I kind of normally throw out there. And the first one will kind of get us started. So you are obviously a board game designer, and board game designers are talented people. I am not. So I critique. Well, I making games is hard, and this is what I always say to people: making games is really, really hard, and it is too hard for me. That's why I'm a critic. So you could have made anything. You could have made literally any board game on Earth, and often by default you're making things that are not on Earth because they didn't exist yet when you made it. Why did you make this? And I mean that again, not in a pejorative way. Just why Cheese Quest? You a big Packers fan?
I made Cheese Quest because I wanted to make a game that was complicated enough for people who like complicated games to respect it and play it and have fun, but also simple enough for people who don't play board games who want to just pick it up and play it, or play it with their kids and have a good time with it. So I made something that uses a lot of the systems that more advanced board games play, like hex maps, and a lot of options for moving, some tactical strategic things in there, but also some fun things like pick up and delivery, and kind of take that stuff, so all mixed in together.
Sure.
So I just wanted something that would be really fun, and this was kind of what it came down to.
Okay. So what came first? Some of the big old stack of mechanics, or did you just from the top down want to make a game about mice getting cheese and running from cats?
The theme was tacked on a little bit later, but it worked so well with everything that had already been built with the mechanics. Originally, the theme was going to be a little bit different. It was going to be more of a dungeon crawl thing, but you see that so often that I wanted to separate from that, because, every time you turn the corner, there's another dungeon crawl game or another, heroes going and fighting dragons kind of thing, and I didn't want to be in that theme because it feels a little too common. So I wanted to go with something a little more fun and a little more friendly for like anybody who wants to play it, a little less intimidating.
Sure.
So I went with cats and mice, and it just ended up working really well with the mechanics.
Sure. Fair enough. So with that whole choosing the theme, I can't agree with you more. You know, as somebody that reviews games and, you know, gets a lot of pitches for Kickstarters and things like that, I get a lot, I see a lot of those dungeon crawls, and I see a lot of games that are dungeon crawls unnecessarily. And I think part of that's because that's just what we grew up with, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like that was, you know, like the game, you know. And it is, I think a lot of it is because like Dungeons & Dragons is the most complicated board game any of us knew until we found out about board games. Right? Yeah, and so we're like, oh man, I could do better than that because I'm going to make this thing. And now that I understand, and while that's cool, I love games that kind of take those ideas and it's like, you know what, instead of a dragon, how about we have like a pirate cat? Like, let's just roll with that. I'm a big fan of that. So, good job on you, for, you know, doing the good thing. So, so we know that the cat versus mouse thing was tacked on a little bit later. So what does your first prototype look like? I love asking this because it's like I stole toys from my kids, or it was index cards that I glued together. I always love hearing this story.
I actually still have the first prototype because I'm a very nostalgic kind of guy, and this game has been in the making for a long time. I've spent a lot of time play testing it and fixing a lot of things. And the first prototype is actually, it didn't use flower tiles like this one does. It used individual hexagon tiles, and you actually laid tiles to build the map as you go. So the first prototype was, I took foam core and cut out individual hexagons, which that takes such a long time. It took me like hours. So it was just foam core with rubber cement, and actually I went to Staples and got a poster made on sticker paper. Paste that on the foam core and then cut around that. So it's just this mess of stuff. And I took magic cards because I have a ton of those, and just took index cards, shoved them in the sleeves, and was just using that. It was Sharpie and lined index cards, basically.
Fair enough. Yeah, you know, you probably wouldn't be amazed the number of Kickstarter prototypes I have seen. That if my son actually now is programmed that if he sees sleeved index card or sleeved index cards or sleeved prototype cards while we're at like the Boston Festival of Independent Games or something, he will actually take the cards out of the sleeve to try and see what cards they're using. And he does not so silently judge people depending on what cards they put in there. He's very upset if people use anything other than land.
Gotta use the land.
Gotta use the land. We were at the Boston Festival of Independent Games with Yanaguana Games with Record. I'm sure you probably saw some of that. And their prototype had a bunch of blue like spells, and he was like, these are bad prototypes because you have magic cards that are real cards in them. And he's like, no, they're just I don't play the game anymore. And he's like, well, but I play the game.
Lands and not Zendikar lands.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so yeah, if you're putting like the full art, like unhinged lands from like, maybe don't do that. Maybe those are worth money. Trade those in for at least a meal. You know, each one of those is at least a cheeseburger. Like, do that. And I will buy you a cheeseburger for those. It's just throwing that out to the universe. So anyway, so how long is your game? You said that the game's been in development a long time. Like, how long is a long time?
So when I first created the game, I created it kind of just for friends, just to hang out and like have a good time, because I've always done that. And it was, I think, about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
So then it started like getting legs of its own, and we just kind of started making a little. I started making a little better and started playtesting it with everybody I knew. I was like, play my game, play my game, play my game. And so basically, it's been just evolving and turning into a better version every time over the course of that time, 3.5 years roughly.
All right. So, I mean, that is. I mean, 3.5 years, that's a long time. You've been working on it constantly that whole time, or is this like, has you put it away? Are we talking continuous effort, or did you put it away for a while?
Yeah. I mean, there was times where I had to put it down for different reasons, for work and everything like that. I still work another full-time job, so when I basically was the side project for a while.
All right, fair enough. I mean, as someone with a side hustle, I can tell you sometimes things get put to the side, so I totally get that.
Yeah.
So, give me the elevator pitch on how this game is played, because I've watched the video, and frankly anybody will be able to watch the video, and it is a pretty good overview, but for the benefit of those listening who haven't seen that video yet, how do you play this game?
Sure. So there's, like you said, a bunch of tiles that are laid down to make a random map. There are up 2 to 4 players, so you have mice that start in the middle of the map on the nest. They are going out on this map trying to get cheese. They go out, pick up the cheese, and bring it back. The goal is to get 2 before the other mice do. You want to avoid cats, and you want to avoid traps. Those are controlled by the mice. So you have a hand of cards. You play those cards to move cats, lay traps, and the goal is to kind of spread your time evenly to get spread your actions evenly to make progress while also sabotaging your opponents.
Fair enough. Yeah, it definitely has some gotcha elements, which caught me off guard while I was watching it. You know, like, if you were to look at the game, like, it looks like it would just be kind of like a, you know, it looks like it would be not in a cooperative game, but it would be like a simple, I'm going to do my thing, you leave me the hell alone kind of deal.
Right.
The gotcha mechanics that I saw, like, while watching the video, I was like, oh, okay. Which is interesting because, you know, there's a lot of games that kind of steer away from, like, wrecking your friends.
Right.
So, I mean, at what point did you decide to throw in the gotcha stuff?
So that came in as I was like developing like the different kinds of card mechanics. Originally, we only had like 4 or 5 different cards that did different things. And I was like, you know what, let me add some more things in here. But I didn't want to go so far with the gotcha that it was like annoying or terrible or, you know, constantly just kind of battling. So we ended up narrowing your turn down to 3 actions. Sure. So you really have to debate and tactically say, like, okay, it's worth it this round to maybe hold them back for a turn or like try to like stop them from doing something this turn. And all the cards are pretty well balanced. That it's not like some kind of, you know, undo everything or like you ruin the person's whole strategy. It just makes things a little bit harder for them. So it's a nice balance with the gotcha. But we ended up adding that in a little bit later when we started adding more cards to make it kind of more thematic and a little more fun.
Okay. Yeah, I can see where, I mean, that is one of the reasons why there's a lot of games that kind of shy away from the gotcha stuff, because then it turns into a card battle game with, like, this extra stuff. And if you really want the maze and the running through the walls to be the main component, you really can't just have it be spell, counter spell, you know, like move this trap, do this stuff. You really have to make it so that, you know, that one time you get that guy is going to swing the match or give you the advantage. But in order to do that, you have to sacrifice your own movement. I love games where you have 3 actions or 2 actions and you've got like more options. Yeah. And the order in which you take all of them matters. Like those are the kind of things, you know, the fact this is for younger kids, right? Like age 9 and up. Like there's not a lot of games that do that where they force kids to make big, hard choices and live with it. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the things I'm excited about, you know, getting this game to the table, seeing what our playtesters do, you know, 11 and 9. I suspect that at least for the first game, they're just going to straight up hate on each other and just stand still in the nest and just wreck each other for, you know, the rest of the game while my wife and I win.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about watching playtesters play this game, I usually explain the game and then step back and watch it now because it's really simple to learn. And the first round, because you have to get 2 cheese, so the first round is really for new players. It's okay, I'm going to leave each other alone, go out, get the cheese, and come back. But then you find out, you know, getting the cheese isn't that hard if people aren't hindering you. Yeah. So they go out, they come back, and everybody realizes, oh, we all have our first cheese, and then it just turns into, okay, now I have to actually think about things because there's only 1 left to get. So whoever gets that back first has a huge advantage of winning. So it's really fun to watch that chaos just all of a sudden happen.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. So how far along are you as far as if this, you know, assuming everything gets funded, which knock on wood, it will, and I think you're in good shape. How far along are you? Like, when do you think that you'll have this one done?
So the only thing left to do is so all the sketch art is all done. It just has to be colored. So I have an artist ready to go as soon as we can.
You just gotta pay the man.
Yeah, exactly. Just gotta pay the man. So he'll be starting as soon as we get funded, or as soon as we know we're going to be funded for sure. He'll start up and get that done. He shouldn't take that long to do it because, like I said, the sketches are all done, and then we hope to have it in backers' hands by January, February at the latest.
Awesome. So not that long. So for those listening, right, from a Kickstarter perspective, and Phil and I both know this as people that pay attention to the Kickstarter world, right? There are some times where you buy games and they come out real fast, right? Ninjutsu and things like that just turn around their card games. Those are companies that are basically running a pre-order operation through Kickstarter, which why not, right? I mean, let somebody else do the logistics on that. But this is a game that is not made yet. It's not finished. But there are games that are like coming out that are hitting Kickstarter that are like barely concepts at all. And where you'll have a year or more before you see the light of day, probably months before you even see updates. And here we go. We got a game that you would back it now. Here we are. It is October by the time everybody's listening to this. And, you'd have it in a matter of months. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah. So you've already been talking to manufacturers and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you would have needed to do that in order to have quotes so that you could figure out the pricing for your thing. That folks, is what we call in the business a stupid question, because of course he has talked to manufacturers, because otherwise the charge he would be putting on his game would be a complete. He could really hurt himself. So he's a smart person. So smarter than me. So that is Cheese Quest. I'm a big fan just from watching the video. So I absolutely hope this is successful. I'm going to send all my people that way. Is there like a website or like a Twitter place they can find you where they can, kind of get in touch with your online presence and send you support otherwise?
The best place to check probably is the Facebook page, just / Cheese Quest after Facebook. And then I'm on Twitter as Phil Schadt. I mean, if anybody has questions, shoot them out to me. I'm completely willing to talk as much as possible. I love getting to know people, so any questions are 100% welcome.
Sure. I should probably follow you, huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
I probably should. That's pretty dumb that I haven't done that already. Maybe I already do. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. So, Phil, thank you very much for coming on the show this week. We'll have to have you back on maybe after the Kickstarter is done. You have a chance to breathe. We'll talk about some other games because it sounds like you played Magic. We can maybe talk about that because we actually talk about that relatively frequently on our show.
Magic, Pathfinder, every
Pathfinder.
Week.
All right.
Yeah, I play tons of board games.
Are you down with Starfinder? What are your thoughts on that? Let's just hit that real fast.
I haven't played Starfinder. I have heard really mixed reviews. Have you played it?
I have not. Largely because we are all in on 5th edition. So we kind of... I waited until my sons were old enough to play a tabletop game to really commit. And I took a lot of time off, so I missed a lot of Pathfinder. And I was going to go one way or the other. I was going to go Pathfinder if 5th edition hadn't come out, but I really like 5th edition.
I've heard really good things about it.
It's really fun. It's really fun. It's really... How about this? My 9-year-old son could likely operate like a 15th level character without any problem. They streamlined a lot of the stuff. They streamlined a lot for dungeon masters who like to improvise as opposed to just staring at charts all the time. Made things very, very easy, which is great. And so we went all in on that. So I didn't do the Pathfinder thing, and I did. My wife has a thing with space stuff. And thus Starfinder not exactly in her thing. I'm going to get the rulebook eventually just because I like reading about that stuff, but probably not for a while.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look too much into it yet, but I have read some reviews, and some people really love it, and some people are on the fence about it. So
I don't know if you saw, but Ninja Division, the people that made the My Little Pony role-playing game, and they do a bunch of other stuff. They actually have a Kickstarter going very soon that is a set of really nice Starfinder minis. designed for use with the game, that are minis that are, how they have the icon characters for all the different classes and stuff. They have minis that are for each of the icon classes and some monsters and stuff. They're kind of getting all in on Starfinder, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Neat. You should take a look at it when you have a spare second, because some of the minis are actually kind of neat looking. Obviously, they're not mass produced yet because it's a Kickstarter, but it's Ninja Division, so it's not like they, they're not exactly broke college kids working out of their garage. So, so thank you very much for coming on the show today, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
It was a whirlwind interview, folks. I cannot tell you enough. At the very least, head over to Kickstarter, search Cheese Quest. Don't make it hard on yourself. It's literally Cheese Quest, spells like cheese and quest. And look it up on Kickstarter. The basic, you could back for $1, but come on, guys. $29 is a copy of the game. That's not hard. $29. That's less than 5 people going to McDonald's, and you'll enjoy this. Probably healthier for you too. So, thank you, Phil. We'll have you back on later. Good luck with the rest of your campaign.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you for listening to Engage, a family gaming podcast.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week.